So magazines, like we saw in today's presentation by AIM, obviously score very high when it comes to involvement, when it comes to engagement, when it comes to even actually pushing purchase. We've seen it over the years. We've seen it across categories and all of that. So it's a medium which is obviously integral to any media plan. However, there are challenges which magazines are facing, like many other media formats today, because of what's happening, with digital as a medium. India is a country which today has about 125 million people, on the digital media, and very soon probably it's going to overtake the number of people who read magazines. Advertising spend on digital has already overtaken advertising spend on media like out of home, cinema, radio, and maybe very soon will overtake advertising spend on magazines. So according to me, one of the key challenges the magazine community needs to kind of keep in mind is how do they not just survive, but how do they thrive in a digital age that we're living in today. It doesn't really mean that digital is kind of going to swamp magazines and overtake magazines and all of that in the near future, but what it really means is that magazines need to find a way of actually riding the digital wave. How can they do it? I think firstly, magazines need to leverage digital touch points in a much more effective manner than they're doing today. For example, dissemination of content across different digital platforms, be it the iPads, the mobile phones, or whatever, and therefore designing that kind of content and that kind of interactivity, because you can't expect to have the same print kind of content working for you in digital media. I mean, an excellent example for me would be National Geographic, the way they've adapted their content to the iPad through the National Geographic app. So I think that's one way in which they can ride the digital wave and kind of keep themselves relevant. The other would be to do, if industry bodies like AIM are getting into research, etc. I think the research needs to be relevant in the times that we live in. So while engagement and all that is very fine, and I think it's a great step forward, we need to see studies which actually show what really is the consumption of magazine and not just magazines but print, across digital platforms. So I think that would be another thing one would expect the magazine community to do. Lastly, given that today digital, even though it occupies just takes up just 5-10% of the total advertising spend, actually takes up about 70% of conversation time. Whenever let's say people from the media community interact with other stakeholders, be it clients, be it guys from the creative agency. So magazines actually need to somehow figure out a way of figuring in those conversations, and that's one way in which they can stay relevant. So I think it's been end of the day, I think AIM has done a fabulous job. I think this research which they came out with today, and what I saw today, was fabulous. It's a good step forward, and hopefully we'll see a lot more traction going forward for magazines. The other way in which magazines can ride the digital wave is to actually try and build digital into the whole advertising solution that magazines can provide brands and clients, because obviously clients are pushing agencies to get a lot more accountable for their media investments, and I think digital actually helps close the loop in the advertising chain. And so magazines which build in a digital leg into the solutions that they provide clients will obviously do better than the others.